What's up, Jim?
Hey, Jared. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Doing good. The weather kind of broke. It's been a kind of a brutal summer, and all of a sudden now I go outside this morning. I'm like, oh, it's like 68 degrees this morning.
Yeah, I know. It's
It was
nice.
awesome.
If only it would remain. Right.
Exactly.
But I'm sure, like the repressed, the heat will return. So,
Exactly. Or I have the recognition of my Texas summers coming up here.
yeah, that's
Although it's way more humid here than it was in Texas. So
definitely did. Yeah. Um, yeah, we live in Kansas, but we basically live in the swamp around the Missouri River. So
yeah,
it's
that
not,
humidity will get you.
it will
It's
get you.
crazy.
It will get you. Definitely. Okay. So what are you reading this week, Jared?
So I actually, of course, I'm still working on Elantra, so I'm just like slowly working my way through that. I started reading a short essay by Scruton. It's a reread of it. It's called "The Tyranny of Pop," which I think is just a really interesting take on current pop music. Part of the reason it came up is because I think I had a conversation with somebody about Taylor Swift, and it just immediately reminded me of Scruton's essay on that. But then also this essay we're going to be talking about today. So.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm continuing to work my way through a series of unfortunate events, right? Which
Nice.
actually, that's interesting to think about those stories in light of what we're going to talk about today.
We might have to
And
do an episode on them, man.
yeah, I am actually going to argue that we should do an episode, especially on
Definitely.
the last book on series of unfortunate events. So, um, and also I began to read for the first time, in like a mature way, Guy Deleuze's, Difference in Repetition.
Okay.
Which is kind of like his first major metaphysical treatise. Okay, like he'd written several books in the history of philosophy up to that, and I've read my way through those. And I've read Anti-Oedipus, which follows closely after. It's a co-written thing with Guattari. This is the first time I've really sat down and seriously tried to read Difference in Repetition. And oh my gosh, it's incredible. We will at some point talk in depth about that book. And there'll be even themes today that'll come up with it. So that's
Nice.
that's my latest obsession is Difference in Repetition. So
Nice. Where did you find that? Did it just come up as a recommendation, or did you go to a store?
no, it's been on my radar for a while.
Okay.
And I should be better at Deleuze than I am. Right. And the kind of the Lacanian thing that I've been working on for the last year or so, Deleuze is the other to that. Like he's in many ways the frenemy, not many, he is the frenemy critic of the Lacanian view. And so it's important for me to, not indulge my narcissistic fantasies and read the other side of things. So, yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think I'm about to go on something of a Deleuze kick. Right.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So we continue our dive into the weird today.
Weird, yeah. And here's something I wanted to mention last time that I forgot to. Though, as our author today would tell you, forgetting is never accidental.
Sure.
I forgot to that I think segues really well. So last time, if you're new to the show, if you join the legions of dozens, though we're growing, we are growing.
Yeah.
We're on the move. But if you're joining the legions of dozens for the first time, last time we talked about H.P. Lovecraft, a couple of short stories by Lovecraft. The second one, because we had to do the cliche, was the Call of Cthulhu, and in that story, two important points is one. The people with the real insight, the people who kind of see the big thing that's coming, are poets and authors and artists. Okay, so Lovecraft, and it's interesting kind of self-revelation that he's telling you that, well, hey, look, I'm a poet author, and hey, I have something to tell you here. And secondly, dreams. They gain primary access to it initially through dreams. Okay, and then they go to reproduce the dream in the artwork that has this deeper revelation. Okay. And I put it to a colleague recently that what I've come to think about artwork psychoanalytically is that the work of art in many cases is a proposal of a dream. Okay. And that we can analyze artworks in much the same way that we might analyze a dream through psychoanalysis, or analyze a joke or a slip through psychoanalysis. And so what an artist is doing for us is proposing a dream. Okay. And that means, though, like what the thing means is maybe even beyond the conscious purview of the artist and all
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
And so I bring this up now because we're transitioning to friend of the show, Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So he's come up quite a bit for us. Speaking of Return of the Repressed, and his essay, The Uncanny, which is a very important essay for Freud in many, many ways. First of all, it is, as his own admission at the beginning, one of his few forays into aesthetics. Right? He wrote some things about what the psyche of the fiction writer. He wrote a long psychoanalysis of Michelangelo, and he wrote this, The Uncanny, is an essay. But other than that, there's not a whole lot that he did in aesthetics. Okay. Another thing is that this essay is written in 1919, or at least I think it was published in 1919, and that's a really important moment for Freud because we're getting into the post World War I period where his thought changes very, very fundamentally in some ways, right? That and we'll talk about this. The basic theory of the libido gets revised in a serious way in light of things that happened post-war for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then moreover, this is going to dovetail very interestingly, I think, with Lovecraft. Okay.
Yeah.
When we'll get into that. So.
Yeah, I really like that idea of creative art as like a proposal of a dream. Partially because whenever you look at like the different epochs of creative genius and how things change, and how you have like the modernist period, you have the classical period, you have the revivals of things, and it's interesting because I tend to see dreams as kind of a conglomeration of a lot of experiences, a lot of like experiences as infants, experiences growing up, things that are said to you, things that are described to you, experiences that you have of the real world, the brokenness of the world, the happiness of the world. All these things kind of come together and in your subconscious mind create these dreams, whether or not it's in an actual sleep state or just kind of a subconscious desire of some kind, that you see it then within epics, certain differences on what that means, what the world has presented to these people.
Yeah, you are getting access to the unconscious of that period.
Yes.
Right. And it's sort of this you get this in Freud's interpretation of dreams, where he makes this. Okay, so this will be important for as we go forward here. So let's say you have a dream, an uncomfortable dream about your mom. Okay. And like Freud would say, okay, yeah, but it's not probably really about your mom as much as he would want to say that. Because if it were just that simple, you wouldn't have to dream it.
Mm-hmm.
So for Freud, what shows up in a dream is what sneaks past the sensors, like with a C, right, of the ego. It's the things. Like, so when we're asleep, his view is sort of the ego lets its defenses down a little bit, and a few things from the basement can sneak up in disguise. Okay, so the actual, I think he calls it the ideational content of the dream, is not really what's going on there. Like, and we have to make a kind of inference from the ideational content to what the actual meaning of the dream is in the unconscious, right?
Yes.
You see what I mean? And so it's interesting by looking at the artwork of a certain period for Freud, I take it, you might actually get a better sense of what was really moving those people than they had in their own conscious sense of what they're doing.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting too because you also have to add in, especially now that we know a lot about like gut biome and other aspects of human physiology that influence things like dreams.
Yeah.
Especially unconscious, when you're sleeping type dreams.
Yeah.
So even the diet that you're surrounded by is going to influence that, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting, like you mentioned Scruton talking about pop culture, and we said this was occasioned by you having a debate with somebody about Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a leap here, Jared, and say you are not coming out strong for Taylor Swift.
Nope. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that, but I must.
There's a reason he called it a tyranny, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's just an interesting thing if we look at like something like Taylor Swift, and it's easy to dismiss it as like low taste, you know, uh, sort of pseudo culture, right? And of course, if I may, don't hate us, I might agree. Okay, but there's always a more profound question though. Is like, but why do we get off on it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, like what? Okay, so even and I think this can be a kind of a break. I think between certain psychoanalytic approaches to artwork and some of the critical theory stuff. So uh, when you look at someone like Adorno and Horkheimer, what they do with the culture industry in dialectics of enlightenment, which that's something we would definitely spend some time talking about because it's an important thing and it's right in many ways. But for them, it's sort of like they only see in the popular culture um, as like this is just the manipulation of capitalism, right?
Hmm.
This is just the selling of a stereotyped identity, right, bent on manipulation, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now these are very much psychoanalytically informed thinkers, et cetera, and they have there's some sophistication to this. But I think psychoanalysts can look at that and say, yes, however, why do those stereotypes work? Like,
Exactly.
what are we getting out of that, right? And so if you just say, "Well, I go to the Taylor Swift concert because I like it," well, there's always this question, yeah, but why is that? Why is it at this moment, this time? What are we getting out of this, right?
Hmm.
Um, and therein, I think we're okay. Now we've opened up the Pandora's box of analysis because asking me why I like something is going to be very, very difficult for me to ever answer from the standpoint of my conscious ego.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, it is always a question like, how did she end up becoming a billionaire, right? I mean, granted, she had a lot of money to begin with from her family and such. But, and to get my more conspiracy side thing going as well as the gatekeepers that allow certain music to be made and to be popular, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, and that fits the Adorno Horkheimer sort of thing
totally.
too. Yeah, yeah. I want to say I'm not disagreeing with them, but I think there's this other kind of layer.
For sure.
Yeah, well, the layer they were well aware of too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk the uncanny.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So this essay is, I mean, I think we could say it's really it's occasioned by Freud taking up horror literature, right?
Hmm.
Like it's basically giving you, at least to get the ball rolling, an analysis of what do we get off on in horror literature? Why do we find this pleasant? Okay. Why? And it's interesting because it's something that on the face of it is quite unpleasant, and
Hmm.
yet it attracts. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, the essay begins with this, albeit rather tedious, linguistic analysis of the German word unheimlich. Okay.
Hmm.
And unheimlich is, it's like, in my top 5 list for favorite German words. Okay.
Nice.
um, and it's interesting around this time. Okay. So Freud's writing this analysis of it around the turn of the century. I noticed, I think it's in the Varieties of Religious Experience, William James leaves it untranslated. Like
Mm.
in the text, he talks about something being unheimlich. He doesn't translate it, right? Which is a way of saying important word, guys, right?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want to impose the meaning on. It shows up in important moments in Heidegger's Being and Time. Okay. Um, Freud is going to draw our attention to it going all the way back to Schelling in the early 19th century. Of this word being important. So it's an important word, and I think it's important to see Freud is taking the time to tarry over it, right?
Yes.
Okay, and what he does is he gives us this long analysis through various dictionary resources and its use by various important authors like Schelling. That unheimlich is a strange. It really is a strange word. Okay,
Hmm.
and you can see why when Freud starts thinking about this word and the way it operates, he's like, hold my beer, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
and so okay, so unheimlich would literally mean in just very basic German, unhomely. Okay, meaning not at home,
Hmm.
uncomfortable, right? To be alien, to be foreign in. Okay, um, and Heimlich then would be homey, right? To
Hmm.
be comforting, to be at home in, to not be alien, to be in one's, most welcoming place. That's all well and good, but then Freud notes that it's certain usages you can use unheimlich and heimlich interchangeably.
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be like we can say unhomey or uncomfortable to mean comfortable. Or we could say comfortable to mean uncomfortable. So there's this ironic strangeness in the usage of these terms. Okay. And this sets Freud off. Say, okay, this is interesting. Like, what's actually going on with this word, the uncanny? And he points out how we use this word to describe a certain kind of experience that we return to, that we enjoy, that we love to read stories of the uncanny. Like we love to, talk about uncanny things that we've seen. Okay. And what he does though, he ends up concluding in that part of the essay, he says, I'm in the Penguin. I know you've got a different translation. You may have noticed I'm really into Penguin translations.
Yeah.
So he says that then the term uncanny applies to everything that was intended to remain secret, hidden away, and has come into the open. Okay, so basically what he means here is he sees the uncanny as sort of, it's like the family secret. It's like the thing that you know in virtue of being a member of the family, but you do not talk about even among family members, right? And what the experience of the uncanny is when the family secret is coming into the open, right? It's like, we're the example I always use is, we're at Thanksgiving dinner and we all know why Uncle Roy wasn't there last year, right? But no one's talking about that. And then your cousin who's a bit of a troll says, so Roy, missed you last year at Thanksgiving, right? And so now this is uncanny, right? There's something that we have been repressing, a secret we're all keeping, maybe not even consciously so, that's now seeping out. It's seeping. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not the same thing as far as, cause he's really interested here, not necessarily in like the beauty of a work, but more in the qualities of the feelings that it evokes. And so that kind of feeling is very different than being scared of something.
Yes.
Right. It's not just fear. There's something way deeper there.
Like he says, I mean, it's not an example. Maybe it is. I don't know. Who knows? You start reading Freud, you start doubting yourself. Anyway, like the bear chasing you is not uncanny. It's just scary. Yeah. Right. Right. That's not uncanny. Right. It's the uncanny occurs when there's this sneaking suspicion that things don't fit together the way I would like to believe they do. Right.
Yes.
That the family secret is coming to the fore. Right. It's an unease. It's not outright fear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's his analysis of the word. Right. So at the end of that section, he says, the uncanny is in some way a species of the familiar, the homely. Okay, I like that. Like it's the unfamiliarity of the familiar. It's the coming into consciousness of something that we've known in some sense all along, but we couldn't bear to say aloud. Right.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and we'll talk about it later on, but this includes even like a primal instinct that comes from our ancestors.
Yes. I mean, so that's kind of where one of the things I like about this essay, and when I've taught it, I've brought up is like, so what part of what Freud's going on here in much of his work is like, we as families have secrets, right? We as individuals have secrets, and he also thinks the human species has secrets.
Yes.
Right? That there's things in our primal past that we would like not to have to admit to ourselves, that we keep repressed, but occasionally something happens that reminds us of it, right? And so there's this uneasiness that like the whole conscious thing that we're doing is sort of a mask for something else.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so should we go into the next section then?
Let's go into Sandman. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I mean, okay, so I don't know if there's ever been like a horror film version of this, but someone needs to do this.
Exactly.
It's awesome. Okay, so he makes his point of the uncanny by analyzing what sounds to be sort of a popular horror story of the day or popular horror novel of the day, right? So do the plot?
Yeah, so it's written by a guy named Ernst Hoffman, who honestly before this essay I did not know who that
No.
was, so I had to look him up and kind of learn a little bit more about this whole work that he has. But it's from a story called The Sandman, which is in a larger work called the Nachstückten, and it contains basically a larger kind of tales of Hoffman, if you will. And so there's this young man that, and I this just reminds me so much of like Eastern European darkness
Yeah.
that as a child, he is told that so his name is Nathaniel, and he is told by his parents, that the Sandman doesn't exist. And the Sandman in this story is someone who shows up if you're unable to sleep, or if you're or misbehaving, maybe instead of sleeping, he shows up and will fill your eyes full of sand, and then take your eyes up to the moon so that his children can snack on them. Um,
Can I time us out there? That is so old school Germanic fairy tale.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, like when you hear the stories people used to tell their kids, and it's always like, if you just slightly disobey the old man, like there is some Cthulhu character that is coming to like cook you and eat you alive, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah, and it's funny because even in this one, like his mom just kind of randomly says, "Go to bed earlier, the Sandman will come," and but then it's actually the maid that shows up and is like, "Lo, let me tell you what's really going to happen when the Sandman shows up."
yeah, yeah,
So talk about trauma, right?
yeah,
Like as a
exactly.
child.
Yeah, yeah,
So little Nathaniel he grows up and realizes. So he actually ends up running. He sees actually a moment with his own father, and I believe is he a lawyer?
a lawyer.
Capellius. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
at
that
one
name is
point,
really
and
important. The
yeah, and it's
phonetic
hard to,
name is important. Yeah,
and it's hard to tell if this really happened or if this was in a dream. He doesn't really indicate whether that happens, but I don't
yeah,
think it necessarily matters for Freud. So but basically Capellius is this kind of creepy figure that meets with his father on a regular basis, every now and then meets with him for dinner. And one night he said something along the lines of like, "Here, let me see your eyes," and it
yeah.
really freaked him out.
He catches the kid eavesdropping,
Yep.
and he pulls him up and like threatens to burn his eyes out with hot coals from the fire. Right? Okay. Right. Right.
As a good German would, I guess.
Yeah, and his dad doesn't kill him, which is interesting, right? So, which is an important theme for Freud, because you have like a castrated father figure happens.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. So it kind of continues from there. Really, ultimately, I mean, this ultimate, like that fear of losing his eyes or the fear of the Sandman sticks with Nathaniel for the rest of his life, even to the point where he ends up getting married,
Yeah.
and it basically drives him mad.
Yeah. And so, or not, maybe, right?
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So it's important. So he moves. So as a kid, he has this traumatic moment, or not, right? At least a traumatic dream about this Capellius character who threatens to burn his eyes out and to go like literal Sandman on him. Okay. And then as a student, he's living across the street from a professor. Beware the professors, Professor Spallanzzi,
Hmm.
which will now be how I reserve tables at restaurants. Okay. um, and so, and Professor, and he, interestingly, Nathaniel buys a spyglass from a guy named Capolo, right, which is similar to Coppelius, right?
Hmm.
And he used that spyglass to look in on to snoop on the daughter of the professor, who's oddly inanimate. Okay, so
Hmm.
she's an inanimate doll. Okay, but also seems to be alive, or she's
Hmm.
an animate doll, I should say. An animate doll, and eventually he confronts them, and it turns out uh, Kapala claims to have stolen human eyes to put into the doll to animate her. Okay, and he goes mad. He goes barking mad. Okay, and then fast forward, he gets back together with his fiance, who's not a doll. Right, they go up a tower, and he sees what we eventually find out to be Coppelius, the lawyer,
Hmm.
walking on the street, he goes nuts, tries to throw his girlfriend off the tower. Her brother rescues her, and then the lawyer down the street says, "Don't worry, he'll come down his own," and he jumps and dies.
Yep.
Right. That's how it ends. Okay, so it's interesting though, and Freud brings this up before we get to the story. He says we are oddly into stories about animated dolls, right?
Hmm.
And immediately I'm going Chucky, right, right. Think of the horror series that's been really big more recently, the Annabelle series,
Hmm.
right? The animated dolls. And he also says we're very, very into uncanny stories about doubles.
Yes.
Okay. And think of it, the whole zombie genre is essentially doubles,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's like yourself, but your undead self. It's a you, but a different you.
Yes.
So I think in many ways, like Freud would look at something like our modern or more recent obsession with zombie movies, right?
Yeah.
And zombie tales as a case of exactly what he's talking about here, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
I actually immediately thought of the Matrix when you
Yeah,
have the agent doubling
yeah,
himself and the
doubling it.
major fear that comes
Yeah,
from the end of the world because he's
yeah,
doubling himself.
yeah. Okay, and so if you look at before he gives us the tale, at the very beginning in that first paragraph in section 2, Jared, he says to these he adds the uncanny effect produced by epileptic fits and manifestations of insanity, because these arouse in the onlooker vague notions of automatic mechanical processes that may lie hidden behind the familiar image of the living person. Okay, so,
Hmm.
and this is something that like later psychoanalytic thinkers like Zizek really go off on. All right, because even he talks about zombies. Um, Part of what Freud is saying here is like we find these kind of stories uncanny and attractive thereof, though they're suggesting that there's something else going on inside of us that is mechanical, right?
Yes.
And where mechanical means not under our conscious control.
Yes.
Okay. Right. And that's the secret. I think for all I think like Freud never really ties together all the different modes of the uncanny in this essay, but I think we can see in all of them really what the common thread is that there's something going on in our background that is actually running the show for us, that is contrary to our official story, and it's rearing its ugly head in some way or the other.
Yes. And it goes after our ego.
It goes after our ego. Yeah. Okay. It goes
Yeah.
after our ego sense of ourselves. Okay. And this is why. So think of it. What is a doll? It's a repetition of a human,
Hmm.
right? What's a double? It's a repetition,
Yes.
right? He says like why are we attracted to stories about people going mad? Like we are. Like think of what is the Stephen King story about the guy who breaks his legs and he's stuck in the hotel in a house with a mad woman for a winter and he goes crazy.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. She breaks his ankles.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
fascinating to us. It's about someone slowly losing their grip,
Yeah.
right? Okay, or not so slowly, right? Okay, and so many things that we enjoy are people losing their grip. But think of it like the mad me, as opposed to the supposedly sane me, is a double of me, right? But running by another process beyond my control. Okay,
Hmm.
so in all of this, Freud is seeing that the secret is that there's something else running, right? There's a program running in the background that is not of our choosing. It's not in our control, right?
Yep.
And now it's being revealed somewhere or other. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that movie's called Misery, isn't it? I believe that's what it's called.
misery. Yeah,
Misery.
misery.
Yeah, it
Right.
reminds me honestly when I was reading this because when he was talking about epilepsy or people having like a stroke or something like that, that there's a different kind of fear, and there's one fear in the sense of like I might lose this person because of what's going on, but the
Yeah.
other fear is like oh my gosh, like there's literally nothing I can do to stop what's going on. It reminds me of one of my oldest boys when he was younger. We found out he was allergic to coconut because he had a major allergic reaction to eating some German chocolate cake and
Yeah.
had hives, ended up losing his vision. I had to like down Benadryl down his throat. It's and
Right.
number one is, I mean, I was father, so I'm scared about that. But the other aspect is it's like there's this mechanical thing behind this that I literally have no control over at all. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what it was. you
Think
know?
of like Tourette's.
Yeah,
So, yeah, not to take it lightly. Okay. But like what you have there and think that it in an unpleasant way, we'll find it funny. Okay. Right. I'm not in an unpleasant way, in an unfortunate way, we'll find it funny. Uh, and I think Freud would say, yeah, what you're kind of taking pleasant, you're attracted to it because it's ultimately unpleasant because you're just one step away from that same situation of just
exactly.
being completely overcome by your unconscious urge to say certain words, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And thereby like stories of that sort of thing become interesting to us because they let us say this little quiet part aloud in a way. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think the fact of the double, and I don't think he used the term doppelganger, but
He
that
does actually.
he does.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I just kind of skimmed that, but anyway, it's interesting because that would mean that, well, that means that ultimately I don't have to exist.
Yeah.
If there's a double already out there of me.
Yeah. So if there's like a zombie running in the background, I mean, so basically that is like there's two of us in here,
Yeah.
right? There's my conscious self and there's the zombie running in the background, right? Well, it seems like the conscious self could check out,
Hmm.
and this thing would keep like because what is a zombie, right? It's you where your conscious self is checked out,
Yep.
right? Right. Okay. And that's the idea. And I think this is what is so unsettling about it is our conscious selves now are not the really, really important thing, right? In the sense of like what's causally operating. Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And now and this will get into like some stuff where I know you depart from Freud, Jared, is so he goes through a number of so in a really important moment in the essay, at the end of section 2, I think, he has a little mic drop, right?
Hmm.
Or like a mic drop at the end of essays.
Yeah.
Okay. And he has a little mic drop moment where he says the Un in Unheimlich is like is the RE for repression,
Yeah.
right? It's like what go in the experience of the Unheimlich. There's always a return of the repressed, and that's a very important phrase for Freud. Is the return of the repressed. Okay. Um, and he goes through, I want to get into returning in a minute here, but he goes through a number of things that can be repressed. And one of them, because when you're a hammer, everything's a nail, is the Oedipus complex. Right?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And, he does, because using just the original story that he analyzes, he says, well, look, he sees the eyes as metaphors for testicles. Okay. Um, and the idea of your eyes being taken out, he sees as having sexual significance as the suggestion of castration by a father, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And so, what's being repressed here, that's returning in some of these stories, in his view, is the ultimate primal fear of being castrated by the father, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And he makes an interesting case, I think. I mean, for any analysis like by Freud, you got to really stretch, though, right? Where he says, "Look, what you have is in the story, these males keep interrupting love, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so the lawyer gets between the boy and his father, who he actually does love. Okay,
Hmm.
so there's an interruption of libido there, repression of libido. Later, the same guy gets in the way of him and his real fiance, and like attracts him to the simulacrum of one, right? Gets in the way there, etc. So, and so then Freud thinks he can see in this is like a repression of the castrating event of childhood. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because the way I read that is like it's a castration of the life force, less so than specifically the testicles. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I think it's much more of, well, if I don't have my eyes, there are certain powers that I have that I literally will lose, and especially for males, means a lot. To be able to use your eyes. So I think that because part of it is
And
like
Freud, your testicles too.
yeah. Well, and part of it too is like, so it's funny because as he was talking about like the fear of eyes, I personally, I can barely do eye drops because I just don't like stuff near my
Really?
eyes. It's just not my thing. Like when I watched Clockwork Orange and that moment where they're like spreading his eyes open with the wires, that is
Yeah.
like my worst nightmare. I would hate for something like that to happen, but I don't immediately associate it with being castrated. Right. It's more of like, it's just my eyes. Like it's just that, but I
When
get
I say
where he's coming from. I know what he's
father, do
trying
you
to say.
think eyes?
Say it again.
When I say father, do you think eyes?
Probably not. No.
Probably not. Right.
Yeah, and I get what he's saying by like an interruption and the repression and all of that. I totally get it. I just think he's so quick to go to that one, and later in the essay he goes really quick from a certain uncanniness to females. That I just, that one in particular, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, that's too much.
That one was more stretched for me.
Yeah.
And now I'll say this is like, okay, in fairness to Freud, we have to always remember, by sexuality, what he means is something much broader than genital sexuality, sure. Right? Yep. Okay, though it does certainly come up for him, right? And two, there's also like, and this is how later some of the later psychoanalysts will read this, is what is castration for Freud? Okay, it's like it is at some point, in order to get what you wanted, you had to deny what you wanted. Mm-hmm. Right? Like someone came along and said, if you're going to get what you want, you're going to have to speak my words. Mm-hmm. And so there's a cutting then. There's a cutting off from an original kind of free narcissistic enjoyment, and now you've been blocked, right? And this is the phallic thing for Freud, is like there's a phallus in the way of what you really want, and you're never going to get beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. In as much as you're a conscious ego subject. You see that?
Yeah.
And so, and now maybe that's too charitable for Freud, because he does seem to like talk about testicles quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But when I look at a story like this, it does make sense to me. What you can kind of see what's going on here is like, we like this because it's recreating for us that original moment where like we lost what we wanted.
Yes.
Right? But that was the price of knowing what we wanted. So like we're in this like absurd paradox. And then now we're returning again and again and again to that same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about this, and this is where like, and I'm with you, Jared, I do think like the you cannot reduce human drive to libido, okay? And Freud agrees, actually, like the later Freud. This is why this essay is so important transitionally, because he mentions he's working on this other manuscript. I believe that other manuscript is Beyond the Pleasure Principle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, where he says, which there will be a show on that one, right?
Yeah.
Where he says a lot of what he's seen, especially from people with PTSD after the war, he cannot analyze these dreams, these neuroses in terms of sexual wish fulfillment. He cannot do it. He cannot find it. There's no hidden pleasure in this thing. So he ends up positing that there's another impossibly deeper drive, right? That is not it's not pleasurable. It might be enjoyable, but it's not pleasurable, right? And he sees it most manifested in these repetitive things, this returning to the repressed, returning to the repressed, returning to the repressed. And a lot of the times it's not pleasant. And think of like the castration event, whether literal or metaphorical, it's not pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. So why do we keep going back to it? Why do we keep going back to it? Like why do we keep watching horror films that horrify us, right? That somehow, like make us feel uneasy, et cetera, et cetera. And this gets into stuff that we talked about with McGowan, right? Mm-hmm. That because the closest we can get to that original enjoyment of being in touch with things independently of repression is to reenact the very initiation of repression. That's the closest we can get.
Right? Yes.
Like the only way I can get the object I really want is to reenact when I lost it.
Yes.
That's the closest I can get. Yeah. Yeah.
And which is why I think
Yeah.
I think that's why the Oedipus thing works, and that the fact that because I read Oedipus whenever he finally stabs his eyes, is that's who he really is, right? Yeah. He's become the true Oedipus, which is blind and which is castrated, ultimately. But that's because he had nothing. Exactly.
Yeah.
But what he thought he was, this driving force, this person who would ignore his own fate and all of that kind of stuff. Yet, there he is, the real Oedipus.
So what happens in the later Freud is he discovers, this is my way of putting it, probably wrong, and please correct me out there, right? Is the real mystery is that we're constantly castrating ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
We're constantly pulling the rug out from ourselves, and we're constantly seeking out these situations. We're seeking out situations of anxiety. right?
Hmm.
We're seeking these out. And what are we getting out of it? We're not getting pleasure out of it, right? We're getting a return to this thing that we don't want to talk about, right?
Hmm.
That's what we're, yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe there's even, maybe, and pleasure is probably the wrong word, but a reviling in the anxiety.
Yeah.
Right.
Lacan, I know I'm probably talking too much Lacan, but like Lacan uses this French word jouissance, okay, which usually it doesn't get translated in English. And it's sort of like something so good it hurts,
Yeah.
right? Like it's enjoyed, but it's not pleasant,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Um, and like for Lacan, like that's what all this is like we're reenacting the castration because that's the closest we can get to the thing that would really satisfy us.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this might
It's
sound a little bit
reenact by
dark.
not getting it. Yeah.
This might sound a little bit dark too, but sometimes too that there's, and I think a lot of rock songs have probably said this better than I did. I'm about to, but there's this feeling of numbness that happens, and it's like I would rather go into the darkness and feel
Yeah.
something rather than
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
right?
I, gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the song. I was working out right before this, and I was listening to the band Helmet. Okay,
Okay, yeah,
and with this song, I'm like, this is the Death Drive. Right here it is.
exactly.
Yeah. And I know there's that kind of pathological sense that I want to hurt just as like a reminder that I'm alive. Okay, yeah, but I think what Freud's up to is something maybe deeper than that. I think definitely deeper than that because it's like it's that the only thing that really keeps my desire going, right,
Hmm.
is its defeat. Right? It's its
Yes.
defeat, right? Because it's that defeat that once again returns me to the closest of what it was when I had it, but I'm not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And that, I think that's what we're seeing now in the uncanny in these stories is like, we keep going back to be horrified and like to feel unpleasant, right? Why? Because in that it's revealing that what we really want is repressed.
Yes.
And we can only get it through a dream, right?
Yes.
We can only get it through a psychosis. We can only get it through, for those of us who are not so plagued, right? Through the Annabelle stories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So then he continues, and one thing I thought that was really interesting is his almost use of like deja vu
Yeah.
as something that is uncanny. That you can, he talks about, and whether or not in a dream or in reality, but he talks about being in Italy and he keeps trying to go a different route from this. So he exits this piazza and he goes this different route, yet somehow he still finds himself on the same street and he recognizes some things.
And what about what's curious about that street? Do you remember?
I don't remember the specifics.
He
What was
says
it?
the only people he sees
They're
are
painted.
over made up women in the windows.
Yes.
And he's like, we all know what district that is, right?
Yeah.
So Freud in his writings is perfectly happy to like subject himself to his own embarrassing analyses, right?
Yeah.
So he claims I keep getting lost. I keep getting lost in this Italian city, but where I keep circling back to
Red
is
light
the red
district.
light district. Yeah. Okay. Right. Like, how lost am I? Right. Yeah. And he has this uncanny sense. And now look, he's going on repetition. He keeps doing the same thing, keeps doing the same thing, keeps doing the same thing. And then it's suddenly uncanny to him because he realizes, oh my gosh, this is where I want to be. And it's not
Hmm.
where I would tell myself I want to be. And he
Exactly.
beats it the hell out of there. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because I mean, yeah, we revisit. So my dad always used the analogy of like a dog revisiting its vomit, right?
Yeah.
That we have this tendency to go back into these dark, nasty things, and kind of revile in it, and then we kind of, until finally we kind of wake up and go, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing? Why do I keep returning to this? And that's when the uncanny kicks in. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So
Yeah.
the repression, the hiddenness that I've been trying to hide is now come to the forefront, and either I realize I'm kind of gross, or at least I realize like I'm better than this.
Or
You know?
I think where the uncanny is where I'm not prepared to admit any of that. So I'm just ill at ease. It's,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, it's like once you're so like Freud has a moment of uncanny, like I'm lost. This why like it's almost like he's saying in that moment it seemed like the city was conspiring against me so that I was going in a circle. Right.
Hmm.
You can imagine a horror tale where like the streets keep moving, so he keeps coming up in the same place. So he's having this uncanny sense of like, oh my gosh, it's uncanny, right? It's mystical, it's weird, it's haunted. I'm in the haunted city. And he realizes, oh no, I'm just kind of, having voyeurism for prostitutes here. Right? Okay, so and it's self-admission that relieves him of the uncanny.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You're like, oh, it turns out I'm not quite the loyal husband that I claim to be.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And then that disabuses him of the uncanny, because he says a lot of the uncanny is where, humans had like primitive beliefs about animism, and he would say religion, right? And we like secular Vienna intellectuals of the early 20th century would like to believe we're just over all that. Okay, and so then what happens? We keep we're having these uncanny mystical experiences and stuff like that. And Freud says that's the religious impulse that's being repressed,
Yeah.
and it's showing up in this way. Like once you see it, oh wait, it's just the repression of the religious and superstitious impulse. He's like, well, that will relieve it, not entirely, but it will relieve to some degree. Right?
Yeah.
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 Um, but I love it when Freud discloses in these essays like that. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and you can see it's sort of like you've got that buddy who's going to call you up. He's like, I'm going to get back together with that girl again, and you're like, dude, how that ends. Like, how many times have we seen this movie, right?
Exactly.
And then eventually you'll come to the conclusion, what are you getting out of this? What you're getting out of this is the drama,
Yes.
is the defeat. And so what is that? What repression is that covering? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also really liked his touching on what he called the omnipotence of thoughts.
Yeah.
How we can put ourselves in a situation where we think a thing. So, for example, he uses the example of like, well, I kind of thought I wanted this person dead, and now all of a sudden, 2 days later, this person's actually dead. You know what? Where did that come from, right? And to me, it's a similar thing to deja vu in the sense of like it's coincidence in a lot of ways, but we can convince ourselves a lot of times, and there's a really uncanny sense of. He uses another example of like, well, my ticket number is 62, and I just got put on, the train number 62, and this. Yeah, it's like the Jim Carrey number 63, I think, is the name of the movie, where these numbers keep popping back up, and it turns into this really uneasy thing.
62, 63, it's only off by one. What are the chances, Jerry?
What are the chances? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay, I think this is Freud getting after Carl Jung here. I think part of their breakup was over this precise kind of issue. So whereas like Jung did not want to dismiss synchronicity, coincidence, as merely the return of the repressed. And like he was open to that. Oh no, maybe there is a kind of meaning structure to the universe that's coming to the fore here. It's a different kind of repressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think here Freud is saying, no, this is just, among we enlightened Victorian era Viennese, this is us letting the religious impulse sneak in a little bit in this omnipotence of thought thing. And we don't want to admit it to ourselves. So it seems scary to us, right?
Yes.
It seems weird to us, right? And here's the thing is and that's another thing we should talk about at some point too, is Jung on synchronicity. But like, Freud's got a point here. I mean, like it does seem like people can invent the uncanny for themselves.
Absolutely.
Very easy. Like, no, dude, you just got 62 twice. That's all it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like low probability events happen every day, right? And so then that raises the psychoanalytic question. Then, like, why are you making a big deal of this? Like, what's really going on here?
Yes.
Like, what's the repressed behind this? And that's a legitimate question, right?
Yes. Well, I've even seen this kind of move stringed together for other reasons as well.
Yeah.
Right. That we make coincidences out of things in order to make sense of something, or at least just make something seem outrageous or maybe beyond the norm, if that makes sense. Yeah. We string together events or string together, certain experiences so that all of a sudden now the narrative we've been given is like, well, yeah, this is why. this whole string of events. Like,
Yeah.
well, you kind
So
of strung those together.
yeah. So there's Errol Morris is a documentary filmmaker that I love quite a bit. And there was a very weird thing that happened in Dealey Plaza on when Kennedy got shot, right? And I should full disclosure. I'm in the tank. There was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy guy. Okay, so
Same. Yeah.
okay, so yeah, all right. So to the point, I'm not even really interested in arguing about it, right? Okay, sort of like, but there was a guy on at street level that right before the shooting happened, like lifted up an umbrella, like and did something funny with it like 3 times. Okay, and a lot of people went off on what are the chances of that. That had to like show there's a conspiracy. There's he must have been signaling to the shooters or something like that. Which, by the way, I would say it's a little clunky, but I mean, right.
Sure.
And it comes out eventually that no, this was just it was the guy who was there making a protest about had something to do going back to Kennedy's father. What somehow was not resistant enough to the Nazis or something like that. It was a protest. It's well explained. The guy comes out about it. He's like clearly has nothing to do with the assassination, right? And it's like but it's an odd coincidence that that's going on like at the second the shots go off and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Morris makes the point that you can see a coincidence just about anywhere you want to. Like every event in some context is low probability.
Yeah.
Every event. Okay. And so it in some context is low probabilities. Like you can find a coincidence where you want it. Okay. However, I am not saying like inexplicable coincidences don't happen.
Right.
Right. What I am saying, and this is I think what Freud is right to alert us to, is we have all sorts of subconscious inclinations to see them where they're not.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. We have to guard against that. Right.
Yes.
But, and I think this fits well with sort of part of what we did with Lovecraft. We said, look, don't reify the metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're doing it with Freud to say, because I think where we're going with the series or with the show in the next several episodes, we're gonna take the weird seriously in some realist ways. Okay.
Yes.
But I think we also want to make very clear this does not mean just anything goes, right?
Exactly.
And that anytime we encounter something that we're claiming to be weird, we're claiming to be, I keep wanting to say uncanny, but I don't want to use that word, right? That we're claiming to be paranormal, that we're claiming to be anomalous, what have you. We've got to not only look at the evidence for or against, but we've got to look at what is the stake of our psyche in this, right? And what possible repression could be leading us to this, to an interpretation to see something that's not there.
Exactly.
Right. So I see like Freud's Uncanny is sort of like it's like a safe sex implement for paranormal studies. Like like
Yeah.
the kids are going to do this, so let's do it in a safe way where we've like protected ourselves from harm as much as possible.
Yeah.
We're aware of our own liabilities in this, right? And we'll try to like not let things through that should not get through.
Exactly.
Okay. I hope we're not in trouble for that, but sorry.
No, the analogy makes total sense though. I mean, because it's one of those things of like these phenomena exist. And so how to make sure that you're not falling into some kind of trap, either psychologically or culturally, to fall into the narratives that are given and the answers that are given versus I want to find out what's really real here, even if it surprises me, whether for good or ill.
For good or ill. Yeah. And I think that's extremely important if we're going to take the weird seriously, to realize that part of what might be going on here is simply our own psychical baggage,
Yes.
whether it be as a species, as a culture, as a family member, as an individual.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's funny, man, because reading this, before I started it, I was thinking more along the lines of like, stories like, or movies like Saw, or these traditionally horror movies that are more recent. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, that could be part of it because he does talk about like severed limbs and things that could potentially happen to you, that kind of stuff. But it's much more uneasiness, and I really like the word unhomely. Like this does not seem part of my normal reality. and that's not the same thing as watching someone get their head chopped off or
No.
hunted down by some psycho killer. It's not the same
Yeah.
thing.
Or think of like just the very notion of the haunted house. Like you're taking home and you're making it alien.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And think of like why, like how, like I recently did with the fam, we did the Haunting of Hill House, that
Yeah.
series.
Nice.
Yeah, really good. Recommend it. By the way, I think there's some seriously interesting psychoanalytic stuff going on, especially towards the end of it. Right.
Nice.
But one of the most displacing scenes, or a lot of the most displacing scenes, is we have these kids who just can't go to sleep in their own beds. Right. There's no place they're at home, and the place that they should most be at home, there's a deep, dark secret. I don't want to spoil this. There's a deep, dark secret on the loose in the house.
Yes.
Right. Like I think the Haunting of Hill House is like, it's the one of the best ways of like artistically articulating Freud's Uncanny.
Nice.
Because there's a secret in the house.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I really like. Have you ever seen The Skeleton Key?
Mm-hmm.
So it's around New Orleans, and basically this woman shows up to try to help take care of an elderly woman. And there's this whole background of voodoo and magic and all of the stuff that happens. And the whole time you're just kind of uneasy. You're like, well, something's going on. There's something in that house that I don't fully understand until it gets, completely revealed at the end. And I immediately thought of that whenever he was talking about like the religious impulse or some of the, past magics, the animism and stuff like that we are afraid of, and how our own desire to go into those things, even without knowing about, those potential traps, can absolutely trap us,
100%.
and take us over. So it's a pretty good revelation of that.
Yes. So very good.
The last thing is that, one of my guys that I actually wrote my dissertation on, his name is Russell Kirk. He wrote ghost stories, and that's actually where he made a lot of his money, was via ghost stories.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He actually won the Dracula Award for one of his, yeah. So he was kind of really well respected in that world. He would not like Freud, all that much.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because I actually went back to an old essay of his called A Cautionary Tale of Ghostly Stories. And he has much more of a kind of traditional conservative bent towards all of it. But he saw ghost stories as a way to reveal certain enduring moral truths to us that we tend to try to ignore, especially whenever we operate in a materialistic way, that these kind of phantasms show up and kind of shock our senses into, wait, there's something enduring here that I've been ignoring. And I think actually that agrees a little bit with what we're talking about here with Freud. There is something enduring.
Yeah, it's the return to the repressed.
Yes, exactly.
And like the repressed could be your own conscience.
Yes.
And actually, Freud, at a certain point in this essay, he's, the notion of the superego develops through. It's not there in the original theory for Freud explicitly, and you can see he's developing it in this essay where he says, "Well, part of what's repressed is this structure that observes the ego."
Yeah.
Right. So like that thing running in the background is the superego. Right?
Yes.
And the superego can return with a message for you that's debasing for your sense of yourself as an ego.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So to put that in Kirk's, and so to put that in Kirk's terms, it's that we are ignoring certain normative values, and these ghosts show up and kind of remind us that, oh gosh, the way I'm living right now is not what's enduringly true. It's not what part of my human nature requires. But then to put it in psychological terms, I think Freud is dead right here. I think he's putting it in those kind of terms. Like
what is, like, using Freud's own self-disclosure about his walking tour of the Italian city. What does the repressed return with for him? It's the revelation that he's, having a little voyeuristic tour that his wife would not approve of, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
That's just a connection. Yeah. So at some point, maybe we need to do some Kirk.
Especially his ghost stories. I think you would appreciate his ghost stories.
I would dig them.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Definitely.
But, well, good, man. Another episode.
Another good one,
awesome.
Man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Return to Freud is always fun.
Always fun. Friend of the show. Right. Yeah. A frequent guest here on the Great Dangerous Books podcast, right?
Yep.
So hey, but now I want everybody hitting that like button, like the return of the repressed. Like go full drive on that thing, right? Like, subscribe, spread around. We are doing our best to make a contribution to the conversation out there, right?
Absolutely.
And let's do it. So, right.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And
All right,
then
man.
next week, we're going to continue to go further in a critical way into the world of the weird.
Yep. Cool, man. Great
As
episode.
always, thank you, sir. Thanks for your time and your friendship.
Absolutely. Same.